Hello and welcome to Food Rebels. This is the show that's dedicated to the more rebellious side of the food world. We're all fed up with big corporations making bad decisions for us. It's time that the challenger brands and the little guys shine. Each episode we meet food and drink founders, chefs, or personalities who are changing the food industry today for the better. I'm AJ Sharp. I'm a food and drink judge, public speaker, agency owner. I believe strongly in manifestation and my favourite colour is orange. But professionally, I've spent decades helping ethical and sustainable brands to grow. But Food Rebels is about so much more than that. This is about raising understanding and respect for great tasting, nourishing food and drink. On the show, we meet some really inspiring people. We taste great food and drink live on air, and we peek inside the minds of some of the most influential food experts today. So join us. And if you want to show support for the show and the inspiring guests we have on, the best way is to subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Today, our guest is Professor Charles Spence, an Oxford psychologist, world expert on how our senses shape the way we experience food and drink. He's worked with some of the top chefs, written best-selling books, Gastrophysics and Sense Hacking, and his research has changed everything from the way we taste wine to the sound of a perfect meal. Thank you so much for joining us today, Charles.
Sure.
So for anyone who hasn't come across your work and doesn't know exactly what it means to be a psychologist specialising in food, can you tell us?
Yes, so I'm interested in how we hear and see and touch and taste and smell, and how emerging insights around the senses and how they integrate in the brain can be applied to the real world. Over the years, that's taken me from warning signals for car drivers that tickle parts of your brain you didn't know you had, through paint colours to make people more productive, and increasingly into the world of food and drink experience design, because I suppose in a way food and drink is something we all do every day, and it definitely does engage all of our senses, from what food looks like, how it sounds, smells, tastes, touches, the pain it might give you when biting into a chili. And I'm interested to see why things taste the way they do to us, what we remember about what we've tasted, memorable meals, and how we can design new kinds of experiences that give us maybe flavour and taste sensations we've never had before.
Wow. Okay, so basically everything about the way in which we are experiencing the world is what I kind of heard from you there.
Yes. We're always somewhere, and wherever we are, there's always some sort of light level. It's warm, it's cold, it smells, it doesn't. There's background noise or there isn't. We don't think that any of these things affect us or our experience of the food we eat, but all of them do. My job as a psychologist interested in the senses to try and measure the impact of these cues, the sight, the sound, the smell of things, be it what we're eating and drinking or the place in which we're eating and drinking, try and document how much of a difference it makes to the taste or your enjoyment.
Okay. One of the things I picked up when I was doing a little internet research about you before you came on, you've been called the man who made us taste with our ears. Can you explain what that means, please?
So probably my first experiment on food was 21 years ago now. The sonic chip, for which we won the Ig Nobel Prize, the opposite of the one you really want if you're a scientist, for silly science, where we had hungry undergraduates biting into 2 tubes of Pringles. And each time they bit into one, we would change the sound of the crunch in real time, making it louder or quieter, or boosting just the frequencies of sound that engineers get when they crush Pringles mechanically, which they do for some reason. And we were able to enhance the crispness and people's enjoyment of the Pringles by about 15%, simply by boosting the sound. And ever since, I've been wondering why and investigating how the sounds, first of the food itself, like the crunch of a crisp, or the pop of a champagne cork, or the grinding of a coffee machine, or the ding of a microwave, through the sounds of the packaging, rattling crisp packets, through the sounds of the places where we eat and drink, like the noise of the engines on an airplane or in a cafeteria or a hospital, how any of those kinds of sounds affect us. And time and again we find that they do, and we can then think about how to optimise them to deliver pleasurable outcomes, because after all, no one likes a soggy crisp. It's got the taste, it's got this, it's got the flavouring, it's got the fat, it's got everything, but it just doesn't have the crunch. And most of our snack foods are kind of crunchy, and we don't really have many taste buds or touch receptors on our teeth. So what we think of as food textures, mostly sound, crunch, crispy, crackly, squeaky, creamy even, carbonated, that are often actually sonic food cues. And we study them in the lab and then optimise them in the restaurant setting with chefs like Chef Joseph of Kitchen Theory, or in sort of marketing communications when you're watching, you're watching somebody bite into a Magnum on the TV or in the cinema, and you hear the crack of the chocolate. That's not real. It's a sonically enhanced crack. Because we know from the research that what people really like is the crack of the chocolate on the outside of their Magnum is really important. If you take that away, people just don't enjoy it as much.
It's that kind of, is it ASMR? I don't know if
Yep.
I've got the acronym right. That on social media, people are really enhancing the sound of very ordinary things. Exactly. They're loving it, aren't they? And it kind of makes, it's linked in my head to, I read this article that said that we crave different types of food depending on how happy we are or stressed we are. And it said if you crave salty and crunchy food, some sort of link to stress or trauma or some sort of environmental impact.
Yep.
Is that true? Is that conjecture?
That particular claim, I'm not sure. Certainly, if we're in noisy environments, like in an aeroplane, we crave tomato juice and Bloody Marys.
Interesting.
From our research, there are a quarter of the people who get in an aeroplane who will only ever order a Bloody Mary or tomato juice in the air and never when they're on the ground. You think, well, if you like a Bloody Mary, you like it, don't you? It's one or the other. But no,
it's because it's
quarter
salty,
of people,
surely.
or umami, the mysterious fifth taste of mushrooms and tomatoes, which of course tomato juice and Bloody Marys have, and of Worcester sauce. And it's this double umami hit that actually tastes better with loud engine noise than it does on the ground. Whereas loud engine noise suppresses your ability to taste sweet and salty, which is why they have to put all the unhealthy stuff in the airline meals to make them taste the same at altitude as they do on the ground. And once again, it turns out to be mostly about what your ears are hearing. Strange. And none of us,
Really?
and those people who do order the Bloody Mary up there, when you sort of tell them about this statistic, they go, oh yeah, I'm one of those. But I've never really thought about it. So our behaviour is being sort of modified and our preferences are changed simply by the environment, the sonic environment we're in. And until it's pointed out to you, you don't really think about it.
Fascinating. It's something I asked Heston Blumenthal when he came on the show. I said, does it ever make a difference, the attitude and atmosphere that's in the kitchen? And he said, definitely it did. One of the specific examples he could give me was he said, if there's somebody on the team who's depressed, they oversalt food. And I sort of assumed without us digging into it at the time, because he said, he wasn't sure why. Maybe you're the guy who knows why. I wondered if it was like a dulling of your senses because you were depressed, you were sort of, under a sort of sheath of not really being able to experience the world properly. Is that
so there are subtle changes you can pick up associated with the various psychiatric conditions, which depression could be one, but maybe more than that, more than the clinical diagnosis, maybe just your mood and emotion play a bigger role. And so even in the normal domain of people who are happy or sad, some of my favourite research from North American ice hockey games, and you can always guarantee one side's going to win and the other side's going to lose. So you've got a big stadium full of ice hockey fans, lots of people to test, and if you give the same food, same drink to the supporters of the winning team or of the losing team, then the same drink will taste different because one group of supporters are in a good mood, their team's won, and the other group, I think it tastes sweeter if your team's just won, and a bit more acidic if you've lost, something like that. And so there are these findings of both a change in maybe what we crave, because maybe when we are low in energy, so depressed might be kind of low in energy, maybe we crave the sort of things that will help us to build up our energy again, plausibly. And that's maybe why very loud sounds seem to draw us and rats towards sweet taste. The sort of suggestion there is a very loud sound, that signals danger. And if we're in a dangerous place, imagine it's a woolly mammoth kind of chasing you down through the savannah, then what you need is lots of energy to run away real quick. And hence you're drawn towards sweet tastes, the thing that will help you resolve the situation.
Yeah, that makes sense though, doesn't it? It's making me think of, when you've got a hangover, you crave Marmite because it's salty, but it's full of B12 vitamins as well, which are supposed to be linked to energy.
And you think about, sort of cravings and comfort foods and sort of ice creams and chocolates being particularly popular comfort foods amongst females, like portrayed in the TV shows. And so, I think it can have an effect on you. And even I've been very interested in how chefs differ. I haven't asked Heston this one, but chefs differ about whether they will allow music in their kitchen or not. And over the last decade, there's been a huge increase in complaints of noise in restaurants, especially in New York. And then when the chefs are asked about it, they said, well, I do allow music in the kitchen because it helps people to chop and stop being bored on a 10-hour shift. And we thought, well, if that's the music we make the food to, why don't we play the same music to the guests who enjoy what we've created? We kind of have a sort of a synergy or a match there, and that's why they're doing it. But there's some chefs who say, I like really loud music, and other chefs who say, no, silence in my kitchen. Music would distract, and that's all kinds of wrong. It has to be silence. And there, when people do the research, my colleagues in Finland, they had people, just not actually chefs, just regular people, mixing a smoothie, and they were given 3 sweet ingredients and 3 slightly more acidic ingredients, like lemon juice versus sugar and honey. And they said, just make yourself a smoothie, however you like it. And there they found that sweet music, more tinkling and high-pitched, made people make a smoothie that was sweeter. Whereas if you were listening to sour music, whatever that is, then people chose a different balance for their seasoning. And maybe goes all the way back to, is it Midnight's Children, Salman Rushdie? And he's got a line in there somewhere about, I don't know, Thelma, whatever she's called, an Indian name, I guess, and her chutneys of discontent. All of the frustration and the loss into these ultra-fiery chutneys that anyone who has one sort of blown away by, and who's onto it. Didn't need a psychologist to pick up the link between emotion and taste.
Well, it makes total sense, doesn't it? Exactly as you say, there's all these circumstantial cues, but it's very interesting to understand that there's so many auditory cues, because it's I think it's almost the one thing that we actually don't associate with food. We know we eat with our eyes before we sit down, and you smell, obviously, and you enjoy the whole environment. But actually, what you're really saying is that the environment needs to be matched to the food that you're eating. So presumably the weight of the knives and forks and the sound, the music that's playing, and the colour on the wall as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, all of those. They're independently or all done together. So we do experiments in restaurants and cafeterias, in the science lab, wherever we can get people. And, for example, in 2014, had 3,000 people in London at the South Bank, under the South Bank Centre. Gave them a glass of red wine in a black tasting glass. I said, how fruity or fresh is it? How much do you like it? Just a line on a scale. Then that was under white lighting. And then we turned the lighting in the room red and said, just tell us again how sweet, how fruity or fresh, and how much you like the wine. And then we flipped the lights to green and asked them to rate exactly the same wine again. And you can see these 15 to 20% changes in what people said about a drink that hadn't left their hands, simply as a function of the room colour. And then when we added sweet music to the red colour, that was an extra 5% of fruitiness and increased liking. So what I often say to people is, if the next time you open a bottle of wine and you don't like what you taste, first thing you should do is change the lighting, then change the music, and you might be surprised.
That's amazing. Is it because those things actually change your mood? Is it that they're changing the taste, or is it that it's changing your mood, which is then making you experience it differently?
So it could be both of those things. And that was exactly what the reviewers of our paper quizzed us about when we tried to publish the findings back in 2014. And our answer was that we had a little thing in the questionnaire for these 3,000 people saying, tell us about your experience today. They'd said, several of them, many of them, said, it's bizarre. As soon as the light colour changed, the wine taste changed. And that kind of immediate transformation, at least for those amongst whom that happened, that's too quick for emotions to kick in. So that sort of suggests it's a direct perceptual effect. But I'm sure in addition to that, there are many cases where the mood you're in does affect the taste of the food, and the atmospheric conditions, be it lighting or something else, could be one way to have that impact. But it would sort of take a bit longer to express itself, I think.
Absolutely fascinating, though. You said something about office paint colours at the beginning when you were talking about what you've done. Tell me about that. What should we be painting our offices?
So, slightly frustrating project, because it was for a paint company, Dulux Paints. So we spent a lot of time looking at paint colour, and at the end of the day it turned out it was the room lights. The colour of the lighting was much more important. Paint colour, you could sort of show a little thing. And there are certain paint colours I cover in my sense hacking book. If you want to sleep better, then you're colouring your bedroom with a pastel shade. Or blue or purple's not a bad idea. That's what I have at home in Oxford. And then for other situations, then it's probably the lighting that's the biggest impact. Put on put on 540 nanometers blue light, which is the blue light of dawn, which is the same the world over, different colour of daylight from the afternoon. As photographers know, daylight gets warmer coloured in the afternoons. And if you put that lighting on, then it will make you more alert, more aroused. So they use it for military long-distance jets to keep the pilots alert. They use it in Scandinavian truck stops for the drivers who are going all the way up and down to keep them awake. They go to the bathroom, get a dose of blue light, and they're more alert as a result. You maybe even use it in Heathrow and some of the airports for the long-haul passengers when you come off the plane. It's kind of like a functional use of light.
Well, that explains then. Sometimes I find in schools, my kids, you're in there, the lighting that they have is very, very bright, almost like broad daylight lighting. And I suppose that's designed to keep everybody awake and alert. But it's also a little bit stressful in my head.
And it might also, I was never allowed into school until the teachers had arrived because I managed to throw an orange through the ceiling of the entrance hall back in the day. So maybe
Not as a
very bright
parent
light.
then, as a child.
As a child, yeah.
Okay, fine. Slightly more acceptable.
And there's research saying that if we're under very bright lights, then we become a bit more self-conscious. So we're less likely to order a unhealthy snack because that lighting makes us feel self-conscious. Well, what will that unhealthy snack do to my waistline? Whereas when the lights are dimmer, then you're more likely to indulge.
Amazing. It's like how if you have a date in a restaurant that has dim lighting, you're much more likely to have intimate conversations and sort of share more and have a better exchange than you are if you're in a really brightly lit restaurant. My father wouldn't even go into brightly lit restaurants. I always thought he was possibly on some sort of spectrum of sensory, but he used to look in through the window and go, no, I don't like the lights. We're not going in there. So it's totally believable and understandable to me. I mean, so what could we be doing then at home? How can we be, say we're having a dinner party at home. How do we match our music? I assume decor can't be changed overnight, but how do we match our music and the things that we can change to our food? How do we link the two together rather than having a jet engine because we've got tomato soup going? Something that's practical.
So one might think about if you're cooking some kind of ethnic or perceived ethnic dish, is Mediterranean cuisine, French or Italian, Spanish, paella, and matching music of the place has been shown to make diners rate dishes as more authentic. So a bit of Pavarotti for your pasta. That's one easy way in. And then there's a lot of research saying if you play classical music, that makes people spend more, primes notions of quality. And so probably if you play a bit of classical music, that will make your food seem a little richer and more luxurious as well.
Excellent.
And then going beyond that, one can start getting all sorts of clever and play some sort of sonic seasoning. So we have now musical menus to bring out sweetness, tinkling high-pitched sounds, musical menus to bring out bitterness in food, like a dark chocolate torte, or sort of very low pitch. The lower the pitch of the music, the more bitter whatever you're eating or drinking will taste. We've got salty music, we've got spicy music, which to me sounds a bit like a speeded up sort of curry house track, for want of a better description. But it is spicy, just like spicy food makes you very aroused, and this music is sort of a high arousal, high energy, and so sort of matching. So there, one can now, I think, online find some of these sonic seasoning soundtracks, probably on one of the platforms, to season your food and get very futuristic, and yeah. And then for lighting, but yes, I guess for lighting you can for colour, light changing light bulbs.
Oh yeah.
They've got them in the Fat Duck restaurant, over your table, because over the course of a meal it would take you you arrive in the evening, and then it's overnight, and then you wake up in the morning and they give you breakfast cereals, but the lighting hues changed over your table, and then it goes through the day, and so they use that sort of clever lighting cycle, probably without anyone realising it. These subtle shifts, because these light bulbs are so LED light sources are so cheap now. You've got a remote control, so whenever we have a lab dinner party, I always get my couple of coloured bulbs out. Off we go, fiddling with the remote control, and they're
so clever.
And fun just to see what impact it has. We could recreate this wine tasting experiment I was telling you about, making the wines fruitier and more liked under a bit of red light. Or if you like something a bit more acidic and sharp, then switch it over to green and try the other colours. But blue colour, then maybe that makes you more alert. But then also there's research saying that the blue light of dawn makes Scandinavian men eat less for breakfast.
Specific. Love it.
Yes.
Niche.
And others who talk about, is it Kylie Jenner or one of those Kindle Jenner, whatever they're called, Kardashians or that lot, claim that if you paint your kitchen pink, that will be so it's like a Kendall Jenner, what is it? Kendall Jenner pink now?
Yeah.
And she's got like a pink kitchen with pink, obviously, sieves and pink ovens and pink fridges. All of this Baker Miller bubblegum pink, because she's convinced that helps people to eat less.
Wow. Well, if it works.
For her.
Blimey. Smaller plates also work. Are there cultural links? I mean, do people from different cultures experience colours in different ways? Because I do remember training we did as judges for, I think it was for the Guild of Fine Food for their great taste. And I think it was, is it Joseph from Kitchen Theory putting up different colours. And culturally, we were choosing, and I think the answer, it was like a red, green, black and white, which is salty, which is sweet, which is sour. The four tastes. And you had to apportion, the colour to the flavour. And that was cultural.
The taste.
Yeah, the taste of the taste.
The four tastes: sweet, bitter, salty, sour. One white, one browny black, one green, and one pinkish red. It's verified balls of taste. And we find that when we served in the restaurant, the diners rearranged their spoons because the chef comes out and says, "These are the four tastes. We recommend you start with the salty, then have the bitter, then the sour, and end on a sweet note." He disappears off into the kitchen. You're left wondering, well, which spoon is which? You rearrange your spoons: salty, bitter, sour, sweet. The waiters and waitresses measure your responses. That becomes data in our surveys. Show that 80% of people in the UK would think that sort of white is salty, browny black is bitter, like coffee and dark chocolate, and green is sour, and pinkish red then is sweet. There are perhaps, I think, we all associate, wherever in the world we come from, we all associate colours with tastes. In this case, we don't want people to have everyone to agree at the dining table, because that would be boring, because then there'd be nothing to talk about. So it's important that not everyone agrees, because some people say, no, white is salt crystals. Why did you say white's sweet? And green is not sour, it's vegetables like broccoli and things. And by having that slight disagreement at the table, then you realise there's something worth talking about here. Well, why, in the first place, do we think colours have tastes? And how can you incorporate them in a dish? And then from a cross-cultural, we've taken that dish and we've given it to diners in Brazil, with a chef over there, and Mexico, done a version of it over there too, and broadly in agreement. But I do wonder whether maybe in some very hot tropical countries, thinking India, Taiwan, maybe Thailand as well, when you think of sweet fruits there, you think of mangoes, bananas, pineapples, and these are all yellowy colour. So might it be that in some countries there are more yellow fruits that are sweet than red ones, and hence you might expect a slightly higher agreement between yellow and sweet in those parts of the world? And that's sort of ongoing research by my colleagues and students and such like. Yeah,
really fascinating, though. I remember that because the lady I was sharing a desk with had immediately said that the black was going to be the salty because of soy sauce. It was just the first place her mind had gone to. And it was really interesting. And I was going, oh, surely white. And we were having this whole discussion about it. And the guy taking it was like, brilliant. This is exactly what I wanted you to talk about.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Sort of experimental, experiential.
So it's not fixed, though. We can change it. It sounds like we can learn, we can adapt. Or is it completely subconscious?
Probably yes and yes. It sounded like an either-or question. I think it's yes and yes. Mm-hmm. So I think we learn it all, and that there is some scope for learning new things. So when somebody comes out with a blue drink, well, that's got, what flavour should that be? I have no idea. So if you can find a new colour in a particular food context, a liquid or a solid, then I think you can learn that blue is raspberry or whatever it might be. But the challenge is if you've already learnt that sort of brown fizzy drinks are cola flavoured and clear fizzy drinks are lemonade, then when somebody comes out with a clear tab cola as they did in the 1980s, then you just can't overlearn, because you see a clear fizzy drink and you're thinking lemonade, and then when you taste cola you have this kind of disconnect. So if you can find a new colour and format, fine, you can learn it. If you're trying to cannibalise an already existing colour and format, then you're going to run into trouble, because it will probably trigger what people have learnt before and not the new thing that you want. Okay,
yeah, that makes total sense. Do you think we could use this kind of, what do you call it? Is it like sensory design?
Mm-hmm. Sense hacking, sensory design?
Yeah. So could we use that to encourage us as a whole, as a nation, I suppose, to eat more sustainably or eat more nutritious food?
Indeed. Just through working with chefs like Heston and Joseph over the years, it sort of struck me recently that these chefs are all trying to create multisensory atmospheres in their restaurants. And with Heston, it was the sound of the sea dish that we sort of did in Oxford first and then made it onto the menu in Bray the next year. So it's recreating nature, the sounds of the sea, the seagulls in the restaurant. And then you go to Joseph's Kitchen Theory restaurant, and there he's recreating the forest floor, serving you a mushroom as if found in nature in the forest, with the sounds of the forest, the smell of the fresh earth after the rain, the bird song, the greens on the walls and everything, and a bit of moss here and there. So again, he's recreating nature of all the things you could have recreated: space, the future, inner city, urban. Time and time again, all these chefs seem to be creating nature. And that got me thinking, what's going on? Is that more than just an accident? I think it probably is, and that maybe these chefs are triggering the nature effect, which is the finding now from the last 50 years that when we are see, hear, smell, touch nature, the blues and greens of water and plants, the sounds of birds and so on, then it seems to recharge our mental batteries. We feel better, we're less stressed, our health improves, and so on and so forth. And in that better mood, elicited by exposure to nature, whether real nature or just the digital synthesized nature in a restaurant with projections on the wall, either type is fine. But in that better mood, maybe we make better food choices. In that better mood, probably it makes the food taste better too. Go back to the thing we were mentioning earlier. So now we just published a paper with all my students, Mayuka, looking not just at these fancy restaurants and their use of nature, but across the whole spectrum from office cafeterias to the latest restaurant, I think in the UK, that won the Restaurant of the Year award, which is a Vietnamese restaurant. And the picture in the newspapers of this restaurant, whatever it's called, a whole wall of plants, a green wall inside the restaurant. And there it is again, nature. And from these examples, but then also from research from gastrophysicists and food scientists, it does turn out that exposure to nature does lead us to make more sustainable and better choices. So we are currently thinking this is maybe a very effective way and to help nudge our behaviour towards more sustainable food choices. And we're just about to run some experiments now saying, for you at home, if there are things we think we ought to eat or order, but we end up ordering the indulgent stuff that we like instead, then maybe by listening to 5 minutes of birdsong before you do your online shop, maybe that's the way. And that can be part of it. And part of it is also, I think, through, it doesn't work to tell people you should be eating this, it's good for the planet, it's good for you, it's good for your health. Never seems to work. Or they'll say, yes, I'll order that if you make it, and then they don't. When you do make it, the food companies find out. But if you can lead people in through their taste buds instead, don't say, eat this because you should do, good for you, but eat this because it's delicious. Then I think we've got a much better way in. So I work with my brother, who's a chef in Oxford now, at his kitchen garden restaurant, and he's got a dish called Weeds from the Yard, which is all about saying the weeds are things that you can't get rid of, that we used to eat hundreds of years ago, picked from the yard. That's the salad in his restaurant. And it's full of amazing flavours, full of nutraceuticals, dandelions and all sorts of nettles and you name it. And from that we've gone on to a weeds and vermin dinner. Truth be told, it didn't sell many tickets, but never the principle was right that, want to eat more rabbits and crayfish.
I'd be so up for that. What a cool idea.
And doing it that way, and then working with others on flowers, edible flowers. Why do we think flowers are only table decorations these days? We used to eat a lot more. Again, they've got medicinal flavour properties, very beautiful. And so it goes on with insects. Given that I'm Mr. Crunch, then crunch is such an appealing property in our snack foods. So if I'm trying to get you to eat insects, I'm thinking about a crispy fried cricket. And what does it have in spades? It's got a crunchy exoskeleton. And that's what people like in their snacks. So go with that. This is a great crunch. Or we had a chef in residence, Charles Michel, in the lab for a couple of years. And his father was a beekeeper, and all the male baby bees used to be dumped each year. So we've been making dishes out of the baby bee brood. Look like maggots, really, but we're used to eating bee products, so it's a bit easier way in. And when you eat those baby bee brood, then they have a really lingering, nutty taste and lingering flavour. It's what food companies would die for, to have something that has a longer lasting flavour is great. For whatever reason, these insects have that. So that's the kind of the way in to try and encourage people, eat this because it's delicious. And then and doing it that way, we can then figure out for insects, for weeds, for vermin, for flowers, what are their unique sensory kind of qualities, and going with that. And that's why working with chefs like Joseph, it was great. In 2016, he had a Mexico-themed menu, and it was 8 courses. And people could sign up to have insects or not. And Mexicans are eating in all Mexican street foods and stuff, so it's got a pedigree there. And the first 2 courses, no insects, because when you arrive, you're a bit nervous about what you're going to eat. And then sort of brilliant sort of psychological design. Course 3, there was some butter on the table, and there was worm butter and regular butter. So there are insects there in front of you, but you don't have to eat them. Course number 4, it was stenciled ground insects underneath your food. So it's now on your plate, the insects, but again, you can eat it from above. Next course, the stenciling came above your food, so now you've got to eat the insect matter to get to the food. Course 5, it was a crispy cricket placed by your dominant hand, so it's easy to grasp, it's got the crunch. And then into the bee products, bee vomit and such like, propolis and honey, and you're away, that's dead easy. And to have people come out of this meal saying, I've never had insects before, and I've just had 6 different kinds of insects, and everything I ate tonight was delicious. Maybe that's you got a chance. I mean, it's only done at a small scale, sadly, but that's probably the way. And so find those unique sensory qualities that make these alternate, healthier, more sustainable foods better, more likely to be enjoyed, and then figure out what occasions are people likely to eat these things. And maybe unsurprisingly, it's not breakfast time. I think insect-based cornflakes will never sell. And we find from our research that probably in the evening with your friends in the pub is a sort of perfect occasion for people to try new foods. Not on a romantic date. Again, maybe you wouldn't need a psychologist to tell you that either, but we found it out. So you can find the perfect time of day. We can optimize the sensory characteristics. And through putting those things together, then we worked with Rupert Ponsonby, a London chef from Pigeon, to send out during the early stages of COVID 4 cans of mead for people to have their own beer moment at home in the evenings with insect matter that started with a already spicy, chili fried crickets all ready for you to eat, and then another packet of insects that were the whole insect, but you had to fry them yourself and season them, and then another packet with insect powder to make your brownies, and then a few flower seeds to grow some flowers for the insects in your garden with a honey mead drink. And sort of great and fun to bring these things together, the sort of psychology of food behaviour and food preference, and then the sort of the culinary skills of the chefs and the mixologists to make these things delicious.
Love it. It sounds very Rupert Ponsonby. I used to work for him.
Did you?
One of my favourite ever bosses, I have to say. But that's really cool. I've recently read a book, and I know that we're getting near the end of the podcast here, but I wanted to ask you this, and I know you're a scientist. But I recently read a book from a doctor who was saying there aren't just 5 senses in the body; there are 34.
Yep.
And
Emma Young, wasn't it? Was that?
It might have been her. Yeah. I think the person who'd written this book was Dr. Tara something. But she was a doctor who was trying to get further towards showing that you actually can sense quite a lot more than just your 5 senses, that we're so much more than that you have all these senses in your body doing all sorts of things, and that a 6th sense was almost totally obvious to her as a scientist. What are your thoughts on that?
So when I ask the people in my lab in the past, how many senses do we have? Because it's a lab working on the senses and sensory interaction. I get answers between 6 and 15, depending who I ask. So there's no consensus amongst us. I have seen various authors saying, 33 or 30. I think the New Scientist magazine had 42 senses in an article a couple of decades ago now. Whether those are actually extra senses, a lot of them aren't. It's, well, in your eyes, you've got red cones, you've got green cones, and you've got blue cones. That's 3 senses. No, it's not. Just 1. In your skin, you've got temperature and pressure and pain and vibration and stroking. So is that 5 senses? You can easily get up to 33 by subdividing the ones that we know about. Are there any actual extra ones? I guess if you go inside the body, interoceptive, yes. There's a sense of need for oxygen, a sense of hunger, probably a sense that your bladder needs to empty. Lots of things there, which might make you more mindful, being aware of your inner state.
Mm-hmm.
And then what other ones we looked at are things like, obviously, your sense of proprioception, where your body is in space. Kinesthesis, your sense of movement of your body as well. Maybe pheromonal sense, the kind of the sense that gets animals to mate. Maybe we have vestiges of that affect our behaviour, whether we realise it or not. So it'll get me up to, probably definitely 8 or 9 genuinely different ones. And now I'm doing a lot of stuff in thinking about taste, as always, but inside the mouth. Are there more than, how many tastes are there? Some people say each taste, bitter, sweet, salty, sour, is a separate sense. There's another 5 for you. But then there's also sort of pungency and burn of chili and the throat tickling of olive oil. That when you go for an expensive olive oil tasting, it's 1 cough or 2 is your measure of quality.
Yeah.
Which sense is that? It's not one of the 5 tastes.
It's the black pepper whoosh, isn't it?
Oh, that's probably maybe a different one. Maybe that's a different one again.
The kind of bitterness that you get at the back of your throat.
Yeah, and this you get apparently with ibuprofen as well, if you drink that neat, which probably is not advisable, or the olive oil. And so is that touch, is it taste, is it flavour, is it some new sense? And which are the ones, electric, when you have those electric daisies or Sichuan buttons or flowers, they give you like electric tingle. So again, which sense is it? And lots going on in there as well.
It's so fascinating. One of the things I've really taken away from everything you've shared, which has been so fascinating, and I actually really want to talk to you forever, but I can't. But what you've really said and kind of evidenced is this connection to nature and I suppose what we call these days mindfulness, where you're like sitting and thinking about all of your different senses. But a lot of it seems to have come from like an inherited memory of the enjoyment of being outside. That is our natural place. We are not naturally supposed to be inside all day staring at screens. We are supposed to be outside hunting and looking, doing all of those things. And perhaps we were a lot happier when we were doing all of that stuff.
Absolutely. There are two things that makes me think of going back to the candlelit dinners that your father preferred. Then is it Lyle Watson in the 70s? He says, in The Omnivorous Ape, famous book at the time, the reason that all the restaurants have candles is it takes us back to our caveman and cavewoman days. At the end of the day, we've hunted our woolly mammoth. We're there safe for a few hours in the cave in front of the fire, and that is what's referenced by the candle in that candlelit dinner scenario, and that's why it feels so good. And the other bit was a sort of finding that came out of my book Research for Sense Hacking, which again says, we do spend 95% of our lives indoors, and that's radically different. It means we don't get enough natural light, it means we don't get enough smells, and not enough contact with nature is a real problem. And part of the research for that book was a study I came across where scientists had gone across the whole of the United States, from Alaska, the coldest state, to Texas, wherever there's the hottest state. And in every state, they'd asked people at home about their thermostat and air conditioning, saying what temperature and humidity do you set is comfortable for you in your own home, regardless of the ambient temperature of the state. And what they came away with is that everyone set their temperature and thermal and humidity to the same numbers, whatever they were.
Wow.
And then when they matched that, they looked at global temperature records, and they found that the one place on Earth that matched that temperature and humidity was the Ethiopian highlands, where supposedly we evolved. And so the authors were sort of saying we're going back 2 million years here. We are, when we're given the chance, there's a sort of vestige of that early.
Wow.
So it makes me then think, what did the Ethiopian highlands smell like? And would those be the kind of smells that we might aromatherapy our offices with to make us more relaxed and get over the stress of moving into a new building where the computers don't work? Hold on.
Yeah. And you're fine. Oh, it's just brilliant. Thank you so much, Charles. It's been absolutely fascinating. I'm going to have to get your book. Remind me of the titles of your book again.
So the more entertaining one, should we say, the less academic. Perfect Meal in 2014, Astrophysics 2017, Sense Hacking in 2021, where you'll find all the tips about how to hold a perfect dinner party.
Okay, Sense Hacking. I'm in. Thank you so much for your time today, Charles.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to Food Rebels. So you don't miss out on more brilliant brand recommendations, insider tips and inspiring interviews, please make sure you're subscribed to Food Rebels and drop a comment below. These simple actions, like subscribing or commenting, take just a few seconds, but they mean the world to us. And it doesn't just help Food Rebels, it really helps to support the food brands and personalities we have on the show, who are all trying to raise awareness. And if you know any brilliant brands, or food founders, or chefs, or campaigners who have a really great story to tell, then do let us know. You can get in touch with us either via our website, or you can reach out on social media. Our handle is @food_rebels_, and we love hearing from you. Thanks so much for listening.